The Eagles advanced to 2-0, holding off a Vikings comeback. And to break down the action, we know that on Sunday, the Eagles really struggled running the football. In fact, Kenny Gainwell, who could not suit up tonight, only could muster 54 yards on the ground. And as a team, they only had 97 yards. Tonight, newly acquired running back DeAndre Swift, the star of the entire show on Thursday Night Football, amassed 175 yards, a career night, and this led to a total of 259 total rushing yards. The Vikings defense was totally gassed. They were out there for nearly 40 minutes of game time. Let's go back to DeAndre Swift. This is a guy who was traded from the Detroit Lions. He was forgotten in their backfield. They took Jahmyr Gibbs with the first round pick, and he comes to Philly. This is his hometown, and puts on a show. I mean, clearly, after only getting 2 touches in that season opener against New England, he shows that he can be running back 1. And he is so patient, letting blocks develop. He can find little holes in the defense, pick and choose his spots, and eventually rip off a big gain. And we saw in that fourth quarter, he had a 40-yard run, eventually had the knockout touchdown run to seal the deal for the Eagles. They had to fight off a little bit of a Vikings rally after going up by about 20 points in the third quarter. The running attack is what the Eagles are best at. We've seen countless times last year. Yes, the passing game hasn't been totally great to start off this year in 2023, but their best thing to do is mowing down opposing defensive lines. They have faced a couple good defenses, but when you can run the ball consistently like they did tonight, it just wears them out. Credit to Brian Flores and that defensive unit. I mean, they did a great job in stopping the Eagles' RPO game in that first half, and it made it a ball game. There was a lot of times where Jalen Hurts had nowhere to go. He tried to find little running holes to evade pass rush, but he was sacked a few times. He was sacked 4 times in this entire game. And a lot of times, except for the deep passing game, those intermediate short routes, Brian Flores had some guy there to make the tackle, so credit to them there. They made this a definite competitive game for the first half. The Vikings have consistently shot themselves in the foot. This season, in 2 games already, they have turned the ball over 7 times, and tonight they turned it over 4 times, 3 by the offense and 1 on special teams. On that special teams play, great punt return, got the ball inside the 35-yard line but coughed it up. Missed opportunity there for points. Justin Jefferson, he had a great night in the box score, over 150 yards yet again. But when you really break down and you saw the game, there was a key pivotal moment in the late part of the first half where he had a 30-yard catch going towards the goal line, trying to do a little bit too much, had the ball exposed, got knocked out, goes to the back of the end zone for a touchback, and that's the dumbest rule in football. Don't get me started on touchbacks that go out of the end zone. I think it's a very cheap and kind of turns a football game over its head. You know that if you had a chance and that ball goes out in the front part of the goal line, that means that the ball goes back to where it's fumbled, and that would have been inside the 1-yard line, setting up shop with a 1st and goal. Probably the Vikings go up 14-10 by halftime, but instead the Eagles get a chance at possession and they cash in with a 61-yard field goal by Jake Elliott. That's a 10-point swing right there, and momentum was with Philly. In the second half, Kirk Cousins is trying to get something going, but that offensive line that's been patchwork. Already Christian Darrisaw was questionable to come into the game. They were missing their starting guard, and Darrisaw didn't last too long, so they had to bring in a backup. Later, they lost their other tackle, so they're playing with their 3rd tackle. It's in shambles, and the Eagles' defensive line, to keep them at bay, you need a really good offensive line. And now you're dealing with 2nd, 3rd string guys. Josh Sweat made quick work of that in the second half, and that led to a strip sack recovered by Fletcher Cox. Turned it into another 7 points only 2 plays later, and the Vikings are down 20-7 just like that coming out of halftime. And just kept coming in that third quarter for the Vikings as they blew a coverage by Devontae Smith, who got a 63-yard touchdown, and it's 27-7 at that point. But credit again to the Vikings for fighting back. They made this a game. They cut it to 6 a couple times, and you can talk about it maybe being empty calorie yards, you know, when defenses are going to be playing a little bit further off compared to what they usually do when it's a tighter ball game, but credit to them, still made the Eagles earn this, and now the Vikings are down 0-2 to start this season. And some trade rumors already swirling around. If the Vikings were to drop that game against the LA Chargers next week, can they or would they trade away Kirk Cousins to a QB hungry team like the New York Jets? Who knows? I think they're going to stand pat. They're not going to do something irrational or radical just because they got off to a bad start. They're going to ride it out. We'll see how it goes in the offseason, but it could be that the Vikings are already down and out for their playoff foes. Coming back from 0-2, very hard thing to do, and with the Chargers next week, difficult opponent for sure, but they do have a long time to recover and get ready for that game. The Eagles, pretty sloppy win yet again. They had a double-digit lead, made it a little dicey like last week against the New England Patriots, only won by 6 this week against the Minnesota Vikings, but a win is a win, and they're finding ways to win ugly compared to what they used to do last year, where they just beat teams to a pulp, winning quite comfortably. And maybe that's just because the Eagles are still figuring things out. They have 2 coordinators on either side of the ball, a lot of new faces, and then coming into this game, I was definitely worried with a lot of missing pieces on defense. No Reed Blankenship, no James Bradbury, no Nakobe Dean, who was on IR for a few weeks. A lot of new faces coming in either off the practice squad or backups coming in, and they were able to hold down the fort against a pretty good Vikings offense. They made some timely turnovers that translated to this win. Now they get a mini bye. They're gonna get some guys back. I expect James Bradbury to clear concussion protocol, be ready for that Bucs game. Reed Blankenship, certainly rib injuries are nothing to be anything that you want to rush back, so we'll see if he is able to return. Definitely going to have some time to get healthy for that game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but I'm very impressed that despite some things going wrong, some adjustments that had to be made in game, especially with Brian Johnson, I think that first half play calling was not the best, but just stuck with the run, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it, man. Simple as that. You have the best offensive line in football. They'll work on the passing game, and yes, AJ Brown had some frustrations in that fourth quarter. Wasn't getting a lot of targets, had to block for a lot of running plays. That's not fun for a wide receiver. I get it. I have AJ Brown in 2 fantasy leagues. Not a good day for him, but I'll take the team win, and I know he means well. Jalen coached him up, had a conversation with him. I don't think AJ Brown is a diva by any means. So overall, I mean, the Eagles get a win. Justin Jefferson may have won the battle against Darius Slay, certainly lost the war in the big grand scheme of things, but Vikings have some things to work on. Eagles are 2-0, and let's see what happens with these 2 teams as they go forward.